Hello, welcome to another trip with myself and Cheap. Today we're off to Brussels. Cheap's very excited. We're going by the Eurostar. This is London St Pancras Station from where the Eurostar departs. Let's get to it. Just getting the travelator up to the platform. If you've never taken the Eurostar, it's quite an interesting trip. And here we are. Eurostar's a repurposed TGV, one of the French trains which has been painted in colours and goes through the Channel Tunnel, which will take us to Belgium and the city of Brussels. In France, out the other side of the channel, we're going to head through now into Belgium and from there onto Brussels. And here we are, Brussels Station, which, as I've probably mentioned before, is one of my least favourite places in the world. It's very, very 60s. The metro to a hotel. And here is the hotel, which is in a converted theatre. It has a slightly odd interior with the lifts because it was originally across several levels. Brussels, and what looks like a UFO there is actually a Starbucks. Now entering the Botanical Garden. The Botanical Garden was originally quite a bit larger than what you see here, but unfortunately they built a very large motorway through it in the 60s, and this may be a recurring theme that the architects of Brussels in the 60s did not care particularly for the city's 19th century heritage. Botanical Garden is pretty nice. Here we have some French style trees in a plotted orchard, and we're surrounded by many skyscrapers, which are more modern constructions. The botanical gardens have statues scattered throughout them, such as this slightly creepy looking one. Looks a bit like a Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, but I think it's actually meant to be a woman and a dog. Very ordered French style geometric gardens. We've had a lot of sunny weather and they're in very good condition. We have some very nice border plants. And in the background we have the orangery, which is where they used to store the oranges. It's now a cultural centre and it's currently under renovation. The garden onto my next site, the Church of St Michael and St Gudula. This church has been the main church in Brussels for a very long time. It was founded in the 9th century. It's built in the Brabantine Gothic style, and what we currently see here today largely dates from the 1400s with extensive restoration work. This Brabantine Gothic style was used in the Low Countries, i.e. what's now Belgium and the Netherlands. And you can see the cathedral truly is a massive and imposing structure which towers above much of the Brussels skyline. The church itself is currently in use by the Archbishop of Brussels and is also used for major royal ceremonies. Belgium still has a monarchy, so the King of Belgium has been married here. These stained glass windows date from a variety of periods, several from the 17th century right through to the 19th century. As you can see, the church is incredibly rich and it's been damaged twice by looters, firstly during the Reformation and secondly during the French Revolution when the sans-culottes broke into the church and stole many of the reliquaries. The church is itself, of course, a Catholic cathedral in line with much of France and Belgium as the historic state religion. Off to the side we have a few Baroque chapels such as this one here, which have incredibly ornate architecture. And here we have a slightly more modern and sad memorial, one for the soldiers who died defending Belgium during the First World War, pro patria being Latin for your country. Finally, this large organ was inaugurated in the year 2000, showing that the Cathedral of St Michael and St Gudula is still important and relevant to the Belgians to this very day. The historic heart of Belgium. Shortly we're going to find a royal arcade which has many delectable chocolate shops. And here we are. You can see in these shops every type of confectionery conceivable, from chocolate fountains through to whole blocks of chocolate studded with Smarties, bananas, and other sweet condiments. This shop, La Belgique Gourmand, is one of my favourites. They even have a hammer with which you can break a whole block of chocolate, which you can see just there in the window. Here we have a Ferris wheel, which has, I think, Easter eggs revolving around. And the whole arcade is decked out very nicely in this classical style. I think it dates from roughly the 1800s. Leaving behind the chocolate fountains, I'm now heading to one of the most impressive squares of architecture in Europe. That is Brussels Grand Place. Just ahead of me you can see what's known as the King's House. This was originally a medieval building built for the Dukes of Brabant, which later became Belgium, but has been heavily restored due to artillery bombardments. Across the square, which you'll see shortly on the right, you can see one of the few remaining medieval buildings in the square. This is Brussels Town Hall. Many of the carvings have been repaired in the 19th century, but the original edifice is medieval in origin. Also surrounding it are several guild houses, so similar to the City of London, there were guilds in the City of Brussels for the bakers, the artisans, etc., etc., and they poured some of their money into these very fine structures. As a whole, this to me is probably even better than St. Mark's Square in Venice, and it's a perfect day to be out in such a place. The level of gold on some of these buildings is absolutely fantastic. It's just so rich, and it reminds you of how prosperous Brussels was as a city during the height of the World Trade. Well, here I am in a cafe in Brussels, about to have a slightly unorthodox Belgian dinner of avocado on toast. The most popular dishes around here are typically things like chips, beer, and chocolate. But I did have a chocolate waffle a few days later, so I feel I was getting into the spirit of Belgium. Time, and you can see here there's some gold gilding inspired by the Italian Baroque, and even in a little corner of the square, some Art Nouveau style homework on the building, and also this rather nice looking little sort of poster thing on the wall, which is advertising a shop from the 19th century. I'm now heading across town to what is known as the Parc de Cinque Terre, or in Dutch as I prefer it, the Jubelpark. This was set up in 1880 by the King of Belgium to celebrate 50 years, and you can see that the park has a very impressive structure here. It's now a motor museum on the right, but this quadriga and triumphal arch were here to sort of say that Belgium had arrived and survived on the world stage. Belgium at the time was doing very well economically and had one of the most dense railway networks in Europe, as it was one of the first nations to industrialise, along with Great Britain. The wealth from industrialisation trickled down to some of the middle class who built these very nice Art Nouveau houses in the late 19th century. Along this path we're going to see one of the most impressive of these houses. And here we have it. This is the Cauchie house, built in 1905 by a husband and wife team. They decorated the house themselves. One of them was a decorative mural artist, and the house acted as an advertisement for their work. The motto of the house is "By us, for us," as they had designed it themselves.